In a world where people are losing their minds, who will be the voice of sanity, of logic, of rationale, of morality and truth? This podcast is looking for like-minded people to stand up to the insane and be real. The Recovery Atheist podcast is calling you to step forward and be counted. Welcome to the Voice of Change. Welcome to the Recovery Atheist podcast.
The Cost of Cannabis is a brand new show that hits on 4/20, otherwise known as April 20th, 2021. This docuseries by Murdock Worldwide Entertainment debunks the myths and lies that demonize the devil's lettuce, or better known as marijuana. But cannabis has been used in cultures, farming, and religions in ancient civilizations. And the history behind illegal hemp is a story of corporate greed, prohibition gangsters, corrupt capitalism, and white supremacy fear-mongering. With a growing CBD industry, this series will dive into what makes a quality product, its uses, and what you should look for to be a safe consumer. Get educated and entertained, and come chill with us. Coming to the Down the Road Show YouTube channel. Subscribe today.
Well, hello, everybody out there in Podcast Nation. Thank you for coming on the Recovery Atheist podcast. And today I am so excited for this episode as I have a gentleman on with me today, Casey Murdock, if that's correct.
Yes, pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it was very, very awesome to be able to hook up with you and have you come on the show. And what we're going to be talking about today is a little bit of marijuana advocacy, a little bit of marijuana legalization, and pros and cons both ways, and what arguments are being made both ways. And I thought, well, if I'm going to have this conversation, I might as well bring someone on who, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing, is a little bit of an expert on it, and also has a show that he is putting specifically toward this topic. And it is a very hot topic right now. It is very big. You've got the Christian rights and the Republicans, and trying to say no, it's something that's very negative. It's something that's going to hurt the country. Then you got other people that are saying, hey, we can have alcohol be legal, and look at what the results of that are. Police officers saying, I'd rather deal with someone smoking pot than someone who's on alcohol, which I completely agree. I've done more stupid things on alcohol than I ever did
Same.
Marijuana. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start it off. I'm going to let you talk a little bit about your show. I've got a video that I'm going to be posting, a little trailer for your show in this video, and also on my audio for my podcast. But let's go into it. Give us some of your thinking when it came to starting the show and what you're trying to do.
Well, the cost of cannabis is not just for people who are advocates like me and the stoners out there. I'm trying to gear this more towards the central and towards the right wing, because I was raised very Christian right wing myself, and make this more educational about and debunking the myths behind marijuana and all the perpetual lies that religion and government and big business have been out there trying to keep it illegal for their own profits. And because, this is America, it's about capitalism, and that's what it boils down to across the board when it comes to CBD, hemp, and cannabis, ever since before the prohibition, and worse after the prohibition.
Well, and you look at how many people that are being incarcerated for marijuana
that don't look like me. They don't look like my white pasty face. No,
especially when it comes to that part of it, the demographic of the different races and cultures and being involved with it, without a doubt, going back to Reagan back in the early 80s and the mandatory sentencing that was put into place.
Biden had a heavy hand in making that law happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one bad thing. I'm glad Biden is in there, but at the same time, yeah, you go back and you look a little bit in his history, there are some spots there that people, by all means, have a reason to, have something to say bad about him in certain things. The creepiness about things in videos of him, also with younger people being one of them. But, it's one of those things where I see someone who will get caught with maybe a couple pounds of weed, and they'll sit there and they'll get up to 2 years in jail, prison time. But yet someone who is getting a sexual assault or an aggravated assault, a rape, something of that might get 18 months, less than the person who has the weed. I don't get that.
Or time served because they don't want to ruin his swimming college career, as one judge actually put it for the poster boy of college date rape. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was Stanford. Was that Stanford, or where was that one?
Yeah, it was Stanford. I can't think of the guy's name.
Yeah.
Nor do I want to give him more attention or glorify that piece.
No, but it's the truth. If you want to look that up, it's the truth about how the laws, the criminal system is so messed up when it comes to things of that nature that we really do need to take a look at this and say, obviously this is wrong. You're looking about someone being raped, where it's the idea of, I don't think they want to be raped. I think that's the whole key part of the rape part of it. But with weed, you're not forcing them to buy the weed from you. Okay. They want it. They want to use it. It's a victimless crime when it's legalized outside of the cartels and things like that are involved with it. But there is definitely many things that happen when it becomes legalized.
Right. And let's not, and first of all, look, the cartels are killing people more over cocaine and heroin than they ever have.
Exactly.
Or ever will over marijuana. And marijuana, I'm jumping right into it, is not a gateway drug. I know more people that have used it to get off of opiates, off of alcohol, and off of heroin, and off of cocaine. More people have used it as a gateway to get off of drugs than are like, ooh, I need a higher high than this gives me. Because, I mean, once again, the comparison, it's like, if you've never done it, imagine it's like alcohol, but without a hangover.
Right.
And the only side effect is you might get the munchies and watch more TV.
Right. For me, it was like, and I've done it where I've gone through withdrawal off alcohol, where I've smoked weed, and it definitely helped with that. The thing is you talk about the whole gateway, and that's always the myth that's put with it.
That's the go-to
when I was right away they do it. So when I was a drug counselor, here in the state of Minnesota for 8 years. And I would ask this questions to the guys is, do you think that marijuana is a gateway drug? And a lot of them would say yes, and this and that. Some maybe would say alcohol, that they had alcohol before weed. But I always throw out this one. Oh, yeah? So what age were you when you had your first cigarette?
Yeah, cigarette was mine.
So, I mean, it has nothing to do with weed being a gateway. It comes back to the idea of, if you are looking for a change of mood, whether it be through nicotine, caffeine, whatever it is, if you have that personality that way, that quality of looking for that change, you're going to look for it. It doesn't matter what drug it is. When it comes to marijuana, it is not killing people. It has so many medicinal qualities to it that, outside of alcohol for sanitizing and doing stuff like that when shots are being done or something of that nature at the hospital, there has been some uses of the cocaines, but not necessarily cocaine, Novocaine, other things of that nature for numbing effects, things of that nature. But outside of that, heroin, morphine for pain, but heroin is not being used for medicinal purposes. Cocaine, for the most part, is not being used for medicinal purposes. Alcohol is, for the most part, like I said, outside of sanitize, it's not being used for medicinal purposes. So there is so many different avenues, and going back to the days of prohibition, going back to the days of reefer madness. The propaganda of it.
Yeah, and that's going to be a featured little part of one of my documentary, because it's a 6-part series. So each show has kind of its own theme, and Reefer Madness will be a heavy part of the of the racist laws and how we kind of got to where we are, because most people don't even realize that movie was paid for by prohibition gangsters out of Chicago, just to kill the weed business after 3 years after prohibition stopped. Literally 3 years.
Well, and it comes down to it is if you look at the people back in those days in the industries that were getting involved, everyone likes to say right away it was the tobacco companies, because if you look at the Reefer Madness movie, they're smoking a cigarette in every scene. Every scene, there's a cigarette in it. But it wasn't just
back then.
Right. It wasn't just the tobacco companies. It was the paper companies.
Mm-hmm.
They had a huge part in it because of hemp being used for certain industries that could be used, and it was going to take money away.
They were the first industry to pay lobbyists in the 1800s to make hemp illegal, because you can grow hemp plants in 120 days. So in certain states in the country, you can get at least 4 different cycles, which is, well, I don't know, how many years faster than a tree?
Yeah, exactly. So, again, it comes down to this propaganda that was put against it. But yet, I just did an episode with my mother back on Christmas about it, because she wanted to talk about, how alcohol is glorified in everything that we do, television. I mean, it's just everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
We can, with that is so glorified, alcohol, but yet it's killing people. It is doing all this adverse effect to our society. But yet no one stands up and says, we need to make this illegal. Now, of course, you go back to prohibition. It raised use up over 60% over that period of time and caused crime to go through the roof. And I'm just saying, when it comes to marijuana, you get rid of it being illegal. Now, all of a sudden, it roots out a lot of different issues that are on the negative side of it, especially when it comes to the criminal side of it, when it comes to being, a lot of times when you're getting weed today, you just never know what it's mixed with, what it has, how strong it is with the THC levels now that they're being able to do, especially with the hydroponics and all the different ways that they're able to do it.
And that's the point. You're making the best point ever for legalization and why you go through a dispensary. So you know exactly what you're getting, and you know that it's been grown legal without any kind of other products being used in it that you don't want to be smoking, that can cause damage to your lungs or can cause damage to you by, even ingesting it and by eating it. And so that you're making the best case ever. That is why it should be legalized. So as a consumer, because throughout the 90s, I was the go-to guy in Utah. If your dealer was out, I have 6 to 7 people I can contact. If any one of them is out, I will find you the weed, because
same here.
Yeah, you could go to prison for 1 seed in Utah back in the 90s when I was living there. And so, but all the crime and everything you're talking about, like, imagine if it was legal for all those decades.
Yeah, I mean, how many people have had their lives definitely impacted because they have drug charges on their criminal record, and it's stuff that literally, when it comes down to it, shouldn't be there. Now, I get it. I mean, I get it if they're distributing cocaine, but people like to use the argument that, well, if you're going around the dealers that have the weed, then you're going to be around all the other stuff. So if you're doing that, it's almost like people that say, if you contribute to this, you're contributing to terrorists. That whole argument that people like to say,
right.
You're contributing to the cartels, you're contributing to these people by buying it. Well, like, again, I said, if it's legal, if it's legalized, then it's going to eliminate that part of it and have it be something that can be beneficial for the country. And you look at
people that say stuff like that have never smoked it or had to buy it, and they would understand the difference between getting it from your black friends, your Mexican friends, or the 70-year-old hippie that you met in Park City. Like, yeah, and the weed is going to be different depending on which culture you get it from when you're getting it when you have to get it illegal. And that has been the problem over all these decades. And in fact, episode 1, the very first scene of my first episode for the docuseries is a waitress saying, and this was I filmed this back in 2013. That was when I had the idea for this documentary that I was basing it on a friend who was standing up to the system over a marijuana ticket. And never did anything with it. And now I have a bigger story to tell. But the very first scene is her saying, like, look, I don't want to have to go through drug dealers. I don't want to have to go through sketchy people and go through illegal people. I mean, how nice would it be to just go to a store?
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. Be able to just go, you know where to go for it, where to get it, and it just be, you know, as simple as, you know, someone going to the liquor store, I guess, for what they need that way. But, you know, you look at other countries. Let's stop looking at within this country and what our issues are, both pro and con, if you're against it or for it. Let's look at the results that other countries have from, you know,
New
having
Zealand.
it be legalized. Yeah, New Zealand. Of course, number one is Amsterdam, and that area is,
Been there,
you know,
yeah.
that's always the number one place people like to talk about when it comes to it. You got Portugal now, you know, over the last few years that decriminalized everything across the board.
Yeah,
Now, I'm not
everything.
necessarily saying that, but I'm just saying their crime rate has gone down. Their people being active and having jobs and being educated has gone up. So, I mean, when you look at things like that, when you're punishing and putting a consequence, it's
instead
going
of
to make
helping.
people right. And a lot of times, all that does, especially for me as an addict, is when you tell me I can't do something, oh, I'm going to fucking do it. Yeah, watch
Damn
me.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, watch me do it. You know, and so
you haven't been able to stop us as a community for decades. Like, you're telling me now even more, we're gonna push back. Yeah.
Sorry, bud. I'm going to go against what you have to say on that.
Yeah.
So the thing is that's one of the biggest arguments too, is what about the children?
That's why you
Oh,
make
it's all about the children.
Exactly.
We don't want them getting
and that's why they changed the age of cigarettes, and that's why you have to be 21 to buy alcohol. Now, does it stop them from getting their hands on it? No, but making it illegal and punishing them, you know, they can throw 18-year-olds in certain states in prison now for smoking marijuana, even though it's been decriminalized. That's the huge difference between being decriminalized versus fully legal. And it's ridiculous. But as far as a kid, I'm okay. Now, I smoked pot my first time when I was 16. Didn't start until I was 18. I am fully for kids not smoking, especially teenagers, because I've spent 20 years in the restaurant industry. So I spent 20 years working around stoners and watching as I got older, the restaurant life average age does not change. Like, it's still going to be 18 to 27. That's your average restaurant life right there. So the older I got to watch the attitudes and the millennials come in and blah 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 and how all that works. And I'm not one of those millennial haters. There's a lot of great ones out there, but at the same time, when you look behind the science of it, your brain is still growing until you're 18. So alcohol, nicotine, any kind of drug, including too many pain pills, is going to mess up the growth of the brain. And boy, have I seen the difference of working with 24-year-olds who have never smoked before or just barely started smoking and drinking versus those that were stoners all through their teenage years. Like, no, they're burnouts, and they are proof of why kids should not. But as adults,
right.
Like, see, because I was in an accident in 2001, not wearing a seatbelt, totaled my truck, broke the windshield with my face. That was the first time I was given Prozac to help with my brain swelling. Well, that was when I realized, holy cow, this Prozac is doing what my ADHD, what weed has always done for me. And like, I get the laziness and all of that, but with my ADHD, weed has always leveled me out so that I can actually concentrate, work better, work smarter, and do what I need to do in the given day. So like marijuana doesn't affect everybody the same. Just like alcohol doesn't affect everybody the same. Just like tequila makes certain people angry, turns me into a lover. Jack Daniels turns me into an angry fighter. Whereas Scotch turns me into a lover. Like, it's one of those things. We're all individuals. And the second you start generalizing, like people like to do, and
blanket statements
and demonizing it, that's when these false myths get out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is where I'm going to start playing devil's advocate now, and I'm going to throw out, some of the arguments that people are going to want to say, and some of them I might even agree with.
I might too.
Yeah, so we're talking about having it be legalized, and we're talking about the government and being able to have it be in dispensaries and things like that, and be watched and regulated and everything like that. But what is going, because there's many people in many states that are able to have their own plants and grow their own, and it's legal. What is going to stop the black market, the underground of people still selling weed from their homes and that criminal element still being there? Obviously no one is making bathroom gin anymore for the most part, except down in Kentucky. Now down in Kentucky, I lived there for 4 years. Now you go up in some of the hills down there in their distilleries, you might get shot. So be careful. Don't go up in the Appalachians and think that you're going to get away with it. But for the most part, people are not making bathroom, gin anymore. So what's going to stop someone who has a real nice hydroponics setup at their home turning around and selling it for a profit anyway? I mean, that's and then what is going to be the consequence of that if they are caught for doing that? I guess that's one of the arguments, is really, if this is regulated, is it really going to stop the black market?
Absolutely not. But once again, once it's regulated and we figure out, okay, what are the consequences and how harsh is too harsh of a consequence? Because if you're comparing it to illegal pills or illegal alcohol sales and things like that, those cause more damage than marijuana. So once again, it's a balance of power in our capitalistic country of, well, you know what? We make a lot of money off pills. We make a lot of money off opiates. We got an entire medical system built around pills. Trust me, I can't get any help for my physical issues. They just want to shove pills down my throat. And there's too much money in alcohol, so that's why certain states, you can have 3 to 4 DUIs before they're going to take away your license.
Correct.
You're not going to get a DUI from getting too stoned, because when that happens, you're not getting off the damn couch.
For the most part. There are people that do get caught out there driving high. I've driven high before that way, but for the most part, you're not seeing that. And then the whole idea of, the argument of, well, there is, for the truth of it is, there is no death certificate that says you have died from marijuana intoxication or anything of that nature. It might have played a role in certain things where the death was something, but when it comes down to it, it's not like alcohol. It's not like the other drugs that are involved. So we get it in the perfect world.
But to answer your question, no, it will not stop it. But once it's legalized and you can be a home grower for especially people like me who need more of it for my medical issues than I can afford to spend because I'm disabled and can't work. It's that being able to grow it yourself is what's going to minimize that black market trade right there.
Well, it's got such a stigma about it. So let me just get into this part of it. Because I know my mom and my dad, they both listen, and they're both pastors or ministers in a very religious Pentecostal church.
Okay.
My dad has gone through so much pain, couple hip replacements. And just is in pain all the time, and they just throw pills, tramadol, everything else, and he got hooked on the tramadol for a little bit, and then they switched him to gabapentin and other things. And it's like, Dad, if you would just have marijuana for this.
I still have issues from taking gabapentin.
Yeah, if you would just have marijuana for this would be taken care of. It's not an end-all everything for it, but I swear, Dad, it would be better for you. And the stigma to it is, well, it's a drug, and I shouldn't take it because I'm sinning, because I'm a minister.
Everything you take is a classified drug, Dad.
Exactly. And that's how I look at it. It's like, Dad, if it helps and benefits your welfare and your well-being in life, why? And it's not going to make you an addict. Why is that not being used? Whether it be CBD or whatever.
Aspirin is an over-the-counter regulated drug. It's still a classified drug.
And I mean, you could take a whole bottle of Tylenol and kill yourself.
Yeah. You try that with weed, you're gonna pass out or throw up.
You're just gonna pass out. I mean, I love Cat.
You're gonna laugh a lot.
I love how Cat Williams says it. You know, it makes me, what is it? Sleepy, happy, and hungry. That's all it does. Sleepy, happy, hungry. What is so wrong with that? Yeah, or horny as well, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's such a stigma on it, and it's like it's okay for alcohol.
Okay,
you're not cool. You're not part of society if you're not able to.
Your pastor parents, talk to your doctors. Ask them how they really feel about marijuana, because more and more doctors are actually being very honest with their patients these days about how they feel about their patients. They'd rather their patients smoke for the pain than take all the pain pills and get addicted.
And that, I mean, what is the number one issue we're having in the country when it comes to drugs? And that's the opioid addiction that's going on, the pandemic with that, the epidemic with that. But, you know, it's one of those.
And those just cause stomach issues. They make you nauseous. They make you just not right in the head. Like, that's the great thing with marijuana. You know how it's going to affect you almost immediately, unless you're a first-time user. And so you know how much it's going to take to help with my migraines or my neck pain, or versus my insomnia. And it's just like, well, I'm going to smoke enough where I'm going to go cross-eyed and I can't remember my own name. Guess what? I'm going to get the best sleep I've had in weeks.
Correct. And the thing is with that is you know, Pfizer and Purdue and all of these different pharmaceutical companies, they know that you do that, you're taking money out of their pocket. So they're going to fight it. So let's talk about the pharmaceutical side.
That was exactly where I wanted to go next anyway. And here's the part of the problem with capitalism and big business. And here's what I'm worried about on why it hasn't been legalized nationwide yet. I think they're waiting for Monsanto and Marlboro to be ready to, because they're buying up land to make their own crops. They want to get in on the game because it is cannabis, CBD, and hemp is the fastest growing business internationally, not just in this country. But yet you can't find banks to start you a bank account for your business. It's not in the banking system. You can't advertise and market on it on Google or YouTube or any of the sites I know, because Google just rejected my paid advertising for my Cost of Cannabis series. So the stigmatism is out there corporate wide, but meanwhile, there's corporations out there that are secretly getting ready for the legalization of it. And then, so here's what happens. So now what happens? You're going to start taking away business licenses from all the mom and pop businesses, all the small businesses, and rewarding these giant businesses that have been out there killing people with their cigarettes and alcohol for years, and reward them with God's gift marijuana all of a sudden. Like, that's where I'm afraid this heads in the near future. We need to keep it out of the hands of major corporations that screw up everything that is good, and allow, especially in the Black communities, to be the farmers, the growers, the cultivators, and start their own businesses. You know, that's not reparations, but that's a hell of a good start for all the incarcerations over decades for just being Black. I can't tell you how many times a cop has busted me with weed and literally told me, "You're lucky you're white or you'd be going to jail right now."
Oh, man. Yeah, that whole argument of white privilege, that it doesn't exist, you're so full of shit. You are so full of shit if you honestly believe that white privilege doesn't exist, that it's a hoax. It sure is. There's many occasions that I should have been thrown in jail that, because of me being white, wasn't the case. A few drunk driving incidences I was let go too. Yeah.
I had a female officer, after frisking me very friskily, drive me and my roommate back to the bar we worked at that we got shitty drunk at the night before and shouldn't have drove home. And we were going back to pick up my car. Well, we'd had a few glasses of wine at home to get rid of our hangover, so we weren't exactly sober again. Did we get in trouble? No. They let us pull the car off into the parking lot of a high school of all places across the street. Then they lovingly gave us a ride back to the bar, where we went and drank some more before driving my car home, and then going and picking up his truck from the high school the very next day. Like
they drove you to the bar instead of taking you home.
Yeah. That's white privilege. That is white privilege.
I'm sorry I'm laughing so hard right now because it's wrong for the way that they stereotype and profile, but that is just insane. That is, and it happens all the time. It happens even today. I know a lot of people are like, well, that was 20 years ago. No, it's happening today. It's happening today.
It was almost 20 years ago. I mean,
I know, but there's, I remember back in the early 2000s, late 1990s, I had gotten a theft, got arrested for a theft. And so I'm in front of the judge. It was like, I was working at a Super America Speedway. I'd stolen like $100 in lottery tickets from my job. And so it was a big offense, right? Because they were federal government tickets. And
oh yeah.
So I had a woman in front of me who had 5 DWIs, had gotten caught again. She's literally arguing with the judge the entire time through all of it. She gets no jail time and sent home. Just a fine and all that and probation. I get like a week in jail. And it was first time offense for me. I don't get it. I don't understand how things like that happen, but it does. And it's unfair. It's so subjective, our court systems and our criminal system
the police themselves were formed to police slaves. So why white supremacy doesn't secretly exist in police forcing and people like to deny that is also just idiotic. And then it's like, look, I recently got unfriended by a Hispanic female officer friend of mine in California because of my Blue Lives, my anti-Blue Lives posts all of 2020 after Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and numerous names I'll never be able to remember for the rest of my life because the list
Minneapolis
keeps adding to it. Yeah.
Minneapolis is my hometown. So when that all went down, it was personal. Like I had to watch my city burn from that. That area that burnt down, Target and all that area down there, I lived there for a few years. So it's like that store that happened, Cup Foods, I've been in there many a time. As I lived there. And so to see that all go down, I was totally against the situation as well. And what they're trying to do with the defunding of the police now and everything, it's like, let's go. This is getting out of control.
Well, and that's the beauty of it because of that. And, say what you want about the phrase defunding the police or reappropriating funds or however there are cities already enacting it around the country that are putting in a new extension of 911 where it's immediately going to a therapist. Instead of just sending out the cops to talk to someone who's distressed and who's having a bipolar manic episode, like, boom, let's forward you to an actual therapist, someone to talk you off your proverbial edge. Like, hello. And they're already getting great results.
Well, and there's Camden, New Jersey. Out in Camden, they completely defunded their police. They've done it for a few years now. They're the example that, people have used, and without a doubt, their crime has gone down. They're, able to police the city or able to have the city be under control. It's helped. So to sit there and say that it won't work, you're not putting the investigation, the research into it to see that it does have a positive effect that can happen.
And I'll go ahead and play devil's advocate because I watch The Rookie, because I like me some Nathan Fillion and love a good cop show. And and one of the most recent episodes, Brandon Ruth has joined, and he's playing an old kind of racist, cop who's seen too much gang wars in LA and whatnot. And it's been very very poignant as far as There was one exchange in there the other night where it was a black officer talking to a black member of just a rundown community that just can't get rid of the crack issue in the streets. And he's like, look, if you cops want to help, get these drugs off the streets. That will help us. And they're having this real honest exchange in television that I thought was very poignant from both the cops' perspective and the citizens' perspective, which comes back to the Camden, New Jersey thing, where all their cops are policing their own neighborhoods. They live in the neighborhoods they're policing. And that was his point. And this black female officer in the show says to him, which is this is an extremely valid point that I get for all cops. The reason I don't live in the town I police is so that my family can't become victims, so that my house doesn't get victimized because I'm just trying to do my job. And that's a very, very valid point. I mean, look at what just happened at the Capitol. We are an angry society.
You and I are like on the same wavelength. This episode has gone so perfect. I have led you into stuff. You've led me into stuff. I was just thinking that. Look at the reaction of the Capitol compared to what happened with the riots that happened in Minneapolis, Portland, wherever you want to go.
The Capitol alone. Just the Capitol alone.
I watched the riots live through Facebook through a friend of mine. Unicorn Riot is his name. He's down in Minneapolis, and so I love watching his stuff. And
I follow
he was
him.
out there. Yeah, so he literally is showing where cops are just shooting people with rubber bullets for no reason. Hands up. Just shooting them, most of them black, just shooting them for no reason, putting tear gas, just for them just looking at them like this. But yet at that Capitol the other day, completely different situation. None of them
weren't even in riot gear.
No, they just let them just do whatever they wanted. If it would have been a Million Man March or a Black Lives Matter that was in the middle of that, there would have been people being shot and carried out by the police, and the National Guard would have been in right away. Come on, people. Let's wake up. Let's wake up and see it for what it is, okay? And realize that this needs to change. This isn't working. The people that sit there with the Black Lives Matter and they get all mad about it, that it's some, conspiracy to cause riots and chaos. No, and it's not that they don't want other lives. The whole people that do the all lives matter thing and think that that's okay for them to do that. You got to understand. I get it. Lives matter. All they're doing is trying to get a voice for their lives. It has nothing to do with whether or not they want me dead or not. Okay.
I never heard of All Lives Matter until Black Lives Matter.
Exactly. I mean, save the whales doesn't mean fuck all dolphins.
I love that analogy.
Okay, it just means let's keep an eye on the whales and try to make sure that they're taken care of. It has nothing to do with fuck the dolphins on that. We want to see all of them do well, but at that time when Save the Whales came up, they were getting hunted and it needed to be brought to the surface. And that's what Black Lives Matter is. Let's stop complicating.
How dare you support whales when they're still cutting off sharks' fins for soup in Japan, sir? You're a fish racist.
Oh my God. So let's go for the sharks then. But what I'm saying, you know what I mean, and no, it's like, come on, people. Let's realize what this really is about, and let's stop overthinking. We want to overanalyze things and make everything so much more complicated than what it is. Let's just keep it simple.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't. I've gotten tired of pointing out the hypocrisy and the irony of their points of view because, first of all, they don't understand the definition of that word. So I think it's 9.5 out of 10 now. People are idiots. I think when you look at Facebook and you look at some of the comments that are being made on some of this stuff, I'm sitting there like my brain hurts. Yeah.
It hurts.
So wait. I can refuse. My business can refuse to sell someone a wedding cake because it's a gay wedding, and that's okay with you. But and I'm going to tell women what they can and can't do with their vaginas. But don't you tell me what I can and can't do with my penis. Don't you tell me to wear a mask for public safety. Don't you?
Well, I'm part of the Satanic Temple. I'm a card-carrying member of the Satanic Temple, and that's one of the things that we fight for is the cake's not being made just because that they're, of a gay couple, or if you're going to put the 10 Commandments up in front of the Capitol, then guess what? We're going to put Baphomet in front, or, and it's not just for us. The Jews have the right to put their thing in front of the Capitol. The Muslims have a right to do their things in front of the Capitol. If you think you're going to have that 10 Commandments there, then guess what? I'm going to sit here and say we have the right to have ours. Freedom of religion, right?
No, better yet. Because I want to make sure I read the First Amendment word for word correctly so that we can analyze this freedom of religion on what it really is here. I hope your pastor parents are listening, because this is an argument I have with people all the time.
Perfect.
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, comma, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or rights of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Notice how they like to leave off the respecting. Okay, now if you take that sentence for exactly what it is before the comma, it's a setup sentence. It's not a freedom of religion. It's freedom from religion. It's saying we came from England because we weren't allowed to practice our religion, and we were told how to practice our religion, because if you don't respect that religion above all else, you will be beheaded. So the first part of there isn't about freedom of religion. It's about freedom from religion, not making laws from a religious point of view that is going to govern over press and we the people.
Again, it comes back to the Christian right wanting to sit there and say this is a Christian nation. No, it is not.
No.
This country was not set. We came here to get away from the tyranny of that. We came here to get away from the Church of England. We came here to get away from being told what we should believe and what we shouldn't believe, not to have the Christian right tell us that.
And
so,
if we're such a Christian nation, why is the first Christian thing we did is kill all the brown people?
Oh, man.
That's a Jesus teaching I remember from the Bible.
There has been so much bloodshed through religion. To sit there and say that they are holier than thou and have this righteousness that they have is it's an outrage. Okay. I am an atheist of the idea of I don't believe in a God that way. Tell me a movement by the atheistic movement where millions upon millions of people have died. But yet we as an atheist don't have morals. I just don't. I don't get it. You know what? Your morals as a Christian make me wonder your morals.
Once again, you need to look up the definition of morals, like hypocrisy and irony and other catchphrases that Christians and the right wing like to throw out there that they use in the opposite meaning of what they actually mean all the time.
Well, the whole thing with morals is set up by society. Morals is not set up by the Bible or religious views. It's set up by society. Each society has their own views of what that is. What we do in this country in another country might not be looked at as being moral. What another country does to us might look at it and go, yeah, that doesn't seem moral to us. But guess what? It's set up by societies, not by a God. It's set up by people, by communities. And that's the difference there. So, yeah, boy, we could go on forever about this.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Look,
that's what my whole show is about.
You want me to poke the bear a little? Here's the conversation I get tired of having. I am not, nor will I ever be, a Christian. I'm a Jesus Christ follower and a disciple of his. And that is why I am not a Christian.
I think I need to smoke a little weed for this one.
Well, I mean, look at every
because if I was high on weed right now, I would be like, whoa, dude.
No,
you just blew my mind.
It's pretty simple. I mean, look, people don't like Christianity because of Christians, not because of Christ most of the time.
Exactly. It's the behaviors of the Christians that cause us to have that opinion of what they are.
Okay, and then here's my second favorite argument. which Christian religion exactly was Jesus Christ baptized into? When John the Baptist baptized him, which one of those Christianity religions was it into?
Well, because it wasn't set up yet, was it? I mean,
there were none. They didn't exist. Jesus
so
Christ was
what church?
Exactly.
But they all the different denominations all think that they're the church and they're the correct ones, and their dogma and their beliefs are the same ones, and they're Christ, they're the Christ church, the bride of Christ. But yet at the same time, at that time, Christ, when he was baptized, there was no church.
No, it was just, let me give you the words, and I'll meet you on the other side with a big hug, and you'll all be welcome. It's literally that fucking simple.
Well, when you look at the actual, when you look at the actual context of church, how it was translated from the original Greek word that way, it really meant chosen ones. It had nothing to do with church. It was translated King James Version into that word, but really it just meant the chosen ones, the people that were part of that belief system. It had nothing to do with an organized religion or church, just the chosen ones that chose to believe that.
Yeah. And tithing was supposed to be a test back then to prove that you believe, not to make pastors millionaires.
Rich. We won't even get into that. I could go off on Joel Osteen.
I hate that fucker so much. I hate him above all pastors. Osteen is the worst. Above all pastors out there, I just see evilness when I see him on TV.
Well, I love Bill Burr. He's like when you see Joel Osteen talk, Bill Burr says you can tell he doesn't even believe his own shit. You want that popsicle? He's like, he can't even open his eyes. You want that popsicle? You can have that popsicle. Just ask for that popsicle.
It's true though. You can tell when a pastor doesn't even believe their own bullshit. Yeah.
Oh man. So let's get back and let's get this done and get this where I can get this edited and out there to the masses.
Hell yeah.
I want you to talk about what you got going on with your documentary. When you're a good idea of when you're going to come out with the first episode, because it sounds like you haven't come out with it yet. When you're going to start doing that, and what is going to be the breakdown, kind of a little bit of a preview of what you're going to do, because I'm definitely going to be advertising this and plugging this for you.
I love you, brother. Well, first of all, this is a very personal story to tell for me, because the only thing that helps me with my health issues, my arthritis, my pinched nerves, and all the multiple things the doctors refuse to fix or even try to fix on me, cannabis is the only thing that works on that. CBD helps out a lot, but the THC in cannabis seems to help the most. So that's why this is going to be a very educational series, talking about the difference of what is CBD versus THC, which is the chemical compounds you can find in hemp or marijuana, which I am calling cannabis because that's the technical term for it. Marijuana is a slur to scare people away from it, even though all the laws are for medical marijuana. But the story starts out in 2013 with my friend Stuart Mazio. Sorry, Stuart. I've been 10 years and I'm still screwing up your last name. He's a stand-up comedian that most people are going to find offensive and not funny. I think he's pretty damn hilarious. We met outside of Phoenix Comic Con while he was doing some cosplay of the Joker, and we became friends. And I have one viral video of him doing his Joker that's at like 15 million views right now. So he calls me up and he's like, "Hey, I need you to come out. I need you to film something for me. I need to get it on tape." I'm like, "Okay." So I drive out from Orange County, California to Phoenix, Arizona, take my cameras set up, and I'm like, "All right, what do you want to talk about?" He's like, "So I got a marijuana ticket last year while I was doing stand-up with some friends. They both pled guilty for the possession and everything, and I refused to plead guilty. They sent me to do community service. I refuse to do that. I'm not paying the fine, not for a weed ticket that should be legal anyway." So he decides to fight the system and become episode 1's subject of marijuana martyr. And instead of doing a minimum of 30 days up to a year, it could have been, because this was back in the crooked Joe Arapio days of Arizona, he decided to slit his wrists in open court. So
What?
So episode one.
Wow.
Episode 1 is going to grab you and bring you in. So that's the story of him and the aftermath and how his family is dealing with it. So you're not going to want to miss that first episode. And then the following episodes after that, we got the history of hemp, where we're going to talk about how the paper mills made it illegal, the bootleggers made it illegal, how Budweiser themselves personally funded Humboldt Sheriff County's raids looking for illegal crops in the hills, like Budweiser themselves, because cannabis was taken away from their business. So we got the history of hemp. We're going to do a racist reefer episode talking about what we were just talking about, the laws, how they're applied, why they're racist, why the war on drugs was racist to begin with. That started with Nixon to Reagan, and then Biden just perpetuated it and almost didn't get elected because of it. We're going to do a weed world. So we're going to compare the differences between other countries versus America, what's legal, what's not, what the punishments are, what the culture is behind it, as well as like ancient religion cultures. And it's being found more and more with historians that are out there digging up sites. They're finding hemp use and cannabis use in some of the oldest cultures in society now. Oh, no shock to me there. We're gonna one episode will be cannabis culture, where we're gonna look at the pop culture aspect of it and how on YouTube you can advertise anything on YouTube as long as it's in a music video and you're smoking it. But if I'm talking about it educational, I cannot advertise on YouTube to talk about it. But if it's in a pop culture, I can. And so we're going to compare the difference between glorifying alcohol and other drugs versus cannabis, like we're just talking about in an episode. So going to be going all over the place, going to be talking to lawyers, trying to help expunge records of the Black community, especially there's an entire coalition in DC just for that. Going to be talking to doctors, professionals, try to get some more personal stories from people as well. So to follow up the Stewart story, because that one's gut wrenching and you're not going to want to miss that. That episode drops on April 20th. 420 for all the stoners. So that's did I do that on purpose? Yes. I've been a stoner since I was 18. So that's my little homage to the culture. But at the same time, it's going to be informative, educational, as well as entertaining. But that drops on my Down the Road Show YouTube channel on April 20th at 420.
Wonderful. I am looking forward to that. I am. I'm going to definitely have that on my calendar. I hope everyone out there does that. Remember, 420 at 420. It's going to be on, baby. We're going to get this started. And I'm so happy and grateful, Casey, that you were able to come on the show and do this with me. A lot of good information to get out there to the masses. And that's what my show's about. And I'm sure that that's what you're trying to do as well.
Exactly. I'm happy for your sobriety.
No, thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for coming and listening and watching the show today. You can always get a hold of me at therecoveryatheist@gmail.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Del Bacon. I have a group off of that, The Recovery Atheist. You can find me a YouTube channel, The Recovery Atheist, as well. You can also take me on the go everywhere. I'm on like 12 different platforms, man. It's nuts. You can talk to Alexa. Just tell Alexa, hey, play The Recovery Atheist, and it just does it. It's amazing the world that we live in today. So remember it, The Recovery Atheist here. What we got for you? What is it? Down the Road?
I am Down the Road Show on all platforms. I'm easy to find.
All right, we're going to get this on, and we're going to keep moving this information out to the masses. Thank you, everybody. Take care out there. Be safe. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Recovery Atheist podcast. It's now up to you. What will you do with what you've heard? How will you use it? I challenge you not to stay silent. Be heard. Be real. Be different.